In early spring of 2022, a group of us rented a cabin in North Carolina for spring break. There were 6 of us, me, my 3 buddies, Ethan, Marcus, and Jordan, and 2 girls, Emily and Claire. The listing was cheap, too cheap. The owner warned us not to wander into the woods behind the property. Old wells. Dangerous ground, he said. We laughed it off. The cabin was bigger than expected, but run down. The shutters hung loose and the windows were caked with grime. Worse, the forest around it was suffocatingly dark. At night, the trees swallowed all light. The first night passed with drinking and games, but around 4 a.m., I woke up to tapping. I looked at my ground floor window and froze. A man stood inches from the glass, his breath fogging it. He was shirtless, hair wild, skin pale. His mouth hung open as he tapped with his fingers. Tap, 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 I whispered for Marcus. He stumbled awake, saw the man, and bolted upright. But when we turned on the porch light, he was gone. The next morning we found barefoot prints circling the cabin. They stopped at every single window. That night, things escalated. Around 3 a.m., Marcus went to the kitchen for water. He stopped dead. The man was inside, naked, back covered in raw scratches, swaying silently in front of the fridge like he didn't understand what it was. We armed ourselves with whatever we could find, knives, chair legs, fire pokers. But when we turned on the light, he vanished. The back door was open. No forced entry. Just open. We left that night, speeding down the dirt road until we reached cell service. When the sheriff met us at a diner, he wasn't surprised. He just muttered something about squatters in the woods. Days later, the cabin listing disappeared from the rental site entirely. We never got answers. Only the memory of that pale face staring in through the glass. When I was 16, my family moved from Phoenix, Arizona, to a remote part of Montana. My parents had saved for years to build their dream home on the edge of the wilderness. It was enormous. 5 bedrooms, a finished basement with a home theater, even a game room. The nearest neighbor was nearly a mile away. It should have felt peaceful, but I never felt truly alone. One weekend, while my parents went into town, I invited my girlfriend over to watch a movie. Around midnight, as we sat in the basement theater, I felt it. A sudden, overwhelming dread. Like we were being watched. I brushed it off. She left later that night, and I went to shut off the basement lights. That's when I saw him. Pressed against the wide glass window of the theater room was a man. His clothes were filthy, his hair matted, his skin pale, and his smile, unnatural, stretched wide, eyes bulging with excitement. In one hand he held a knife. Slowly he tapped it against the glass. I froze, unable to breathe. When I moved to shut off another light in the bar room, he followed, shuffling along the outside wall, always keeping his eyes on me. When my parents returned minutes later, I told them everything. My dad grabbed his hunting rifle and searched the property, but the man was gone. Police found no evidence, no footprints. But the tapping came back, night after night, sometimes faint, sometimes louder, always from the windows below my bedroom. Sometimes I'd hear heavy footsteps circling the house. Then winter arrived. One night, while my parents were away, I heard deliberate footsteps crunching in the snow outside. Our Rottweiler growled at the door before exploding into furious barking. Then came the knock, slow, taunting. The next morning I saw footprints circling the house, stopping at every single window. That night I stepped out onto the second-floor deck with the shotgun my dad left me. Snow blanketed the woods. And there he was, the same man, the same grin, knife glinting in his hand. I aimed and shouted a warning. He didn't move, didn't blink. So I fired into the air. Finally, he stepped back, but he didn't run. He only smiled wider as he faded into the woods. That was the last night I ever saw him. But I still wonder if he's out there, watching someone else's window now. When I was 12 years old, my parents finally trusted me to stay home alone. We lived in the quiet town of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. It wasn't the kind of place you worried about locking doors. Families left bikes in their front yards. Kids rode scooters until dark, and you never felt unsafe walking alone at night. Our house sat on a tree-lined street. Nothing fancy, just a two-story colonial with a wide porch. That particular weekend, my parents had plans to go out with friends. Normally, my older brother would be home with me, but he was away at a sleepover. My parents decided I was old enough to handle one night alone. They left me some cash for dinner and reminded me about the emergency numbers stuck to the fridge. I ordered a pizza from a local place called Marco's Pizzeria, a spot we'd gone to for years. It was only 3 blocks away. When the doorbell rang, I rushed downstairs with a $20 bill. The delivery guy looked older, mid-30s maybe. He wore a black baseball cap and had an unkempt beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in months. His glasses were smudged, his shirt wrinkled, and he carried the box in one hand while fumbling with the change in the other. As I reached out to grab the pizza, he paused. His eyes shifted past me into the house. "You here alone?" he asked casually, almost too casually. The question immediately sent a shiver down my spine. My parents had drilled it into me. Never admit you're alone. I lied. No, my parents are upstairs. He studied me for a moment. Then, with a slow grin, he handed me the box, gave me the change, and walked back down the steps. I shut the door quickly. The rest of the night went as planned. I ate 3 slices, wrapped the rest in foil, and stuck them in the fridge. I headed upstairs and buried myself in a video game. Hours passed until I heard the doorbell again. I hurried downstairs, expecting my parents. But when I pressed my face against the door and called, "Mom? Dad?" a voice I didn't recognize answered, "Hey, I need help. Can I use your phone?" Every instinct screamed, "Don't open that door." I asked, "Who is this?" The man didn't say his name. He just repeated, "Please, I need to use your phone." I froze. Then I saw his shadow shift. He was staring through the glass panel on the top half of our door. He could see me. Panicked, I bolted upstairs and grabbed my mom's phone from her nightstand. I called her cell. She answered groggily from wherever they were, but when I told her someone was at the door asking to come inside, her voice instantly sharpened. She asked if I had let him know I was alone. I admitted the pizza guy had asked earlier, and I'd answered wrong. Silence hung on the line for a second before she told me she was calling the police. The doorbell rang again. Then pounding. The man's muffled voice grew more insistent. "Let me in. I just need help." Then I heard it, the side gate opening. Someone was trying to get into the backyard. Mom kept me calm, whispering, "Stay quiet. Lock the bedroom. Don't move." But soon footsteps creaked inside the house. Heavy, deliberate. He was in. I hid under the bed, heart hammering so hard I thought he'd hear it. I listened as the footsteps crept upstairs. I saw shadows moving under the door. The knob rattled. Then a soft knock. No words, just silence and pressure on the handle. And then retreating steps. Back down the hall. Minutes later, I heard crashing downstairs, the front door forced open. Police stormed in, calling my name. They found the back sliding door ajar and the kitchen window wide open. When my parents got home, I told them everything. The police noted my suspicion about the delivery guy, but with no proof, nothing came of it. My parents took me to Marco's the next day. I didn't see the man. When we asked the manager, he said the guy I described was named Eddie, but he hadn't been on shift that night. When we pressed further, the manager got defensive, told us to leave. To this day, I believe that delivery driver came back. He knew I was alone. And if I'd opened the door that second time, I don't think I'd be here to tell the story.